when we convert money from US to Canadian dollars, we use a conversion rate. Okay? Or this rate, it can be shown as a slope. So in this case here, we've shown that the US dollars is our independent variable and Canadian dollars is our dependent. So we're probably converting US into Canadian dollars. Now it could be the other way around, so this one is not clear which one is our dependent and independent variable, but we can graph this. Okay, and we're just going to assume that the US dollars is our independent and the Canadian dollars is our dependent. Okay, so looks like we're going to go all the way up to $550 US, and I'm just going to make that 900 Canadian. So this is going to be a little bit, actually it's going to be a little bit hard to break it up into that. So I'm going to do 1,000 here, and then there's $500, and I can break this up into, there's 900 here. Okay, so we're going to use that. 850 is going to 870, 847 is going to be somewhere in between there. Okay, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, 550 is going to graph onto about somewhere about there. Okay, so I'm just going to eyeball it, and there's where my 550 lies. Okay, so that's 550. We'll say that's about, that's 500. I think that's about the right scaling. This is kind of, I should have maybe started with the, I should have maybe started with the hundreds here, but let's say that's 600 here, and so 550 is going to be right about there. Okay, so there's my scale. So this is, we do have to learn how to scale these things, draw scale on graphs. So make sure that you do some practice and kind of figure out how we can do some scale. So in this case here, notice that I started with some nice numbers. Although I did start with 550 here, I probably should have started with 600. It would be easier to fit my scale in. So I'm going to graph that first point. Okay, I'm going to graph it from the bottom. So $300 US converts into 462 Canadian dollars, right? Maybe right about there. Okay, a little bit higher, right about there. And then $24 is going to be those points are going to be really hard to graph, but it's going to be, you know, graph it somewhere in there. That last point really is going to be hard to see. Okay, so, but we're going to base our graph off those first 2 points that we drew. So we want our change in Y, the change in Canadian dollars. Okay, in this case here, our change in Canadian dollars is going to be, we're going to gain I need a calculator for 847 minus 462 is going to give us $385 change. Okay, so we're going to do positive $385. And that's our change in Y. Okay, and then our change in X shows up on my table like this. So we've gained $250 US. So my change in X is going to be positive $250 US. So for every $250 US, we're going to be able to convert it into $385 Canadian. Okay, and we want to know what the rate is. So what is a bank rate in dollars Canadian for every dollar US? This is what our slope is going to represent. Okay, and we know that the units of this slope if we just keep track of the Y versus the X. So our change in Y was positive $385, and that's Canadian. Just make sure that's dollars Canadian. Okay, and the change in X is going to be positive $250 US. And what that ends up doing then is that is our slope right there. That's our rate. We can convert it to a unit rate, which is often convenient to convert things into unit rates. So when we divide that, we have $1.54 Canadian for every $1 US. Okay, so that's our conversion rate.